Welcome to Wax Brutal Truth. I'm your host, Wack, and I'm glad that you joined me for today's video. I'm very excited to have the first ever guest on Wax Brutal Truth, and that's going to be Firespark81. Now, you'll be able to find Firespark's links in the description of this video, but real quick, if you go ahead and just introduce yourself, tell us how to find you, and a little bit about yourself, that would be great.
You can find me anywhere with the name Firespark81, literally on all the socials and on YouTube. My main platform is, however, YouTube, and I make gaming video guides.
Gaming video guides. Nice.
Gaming guides for video games.
I think a lot of you that are watching this video are probably already familiar with Firespark81. If you're not, definitely check out his YouTube channel. He's got a lot of great stuff over on his channel. But today we're going to talk about AI art. And we're gonna get funky today, right?
Yeah.
So probably the first thing that's on everybody's mind is our relation to AI art. Why are we talking about this? What relationship do we have with AI art? And what's it matter to us?
I mean, from my point of view, I think it's an absolutely fantastic tool for creatives in general, especially for those who may not have any type of art background, and even for some of those who do. So for example, I do have an art background. I have a degree in graphic design. You know, I can paint, I can draw, all that, but I never really honed those skills. I did what I had to do to get the degree because what I was more focused on was the photo manipulation side of things. And the thing that fascinated me the most was the design psychology aspect of design, if that makes any sense. So I never really practiced on honing my painting skills or my drawing skills. So while I can do those things, it does take me a long time. And AI art just makes it so much faster for specifically thumbnail design, which is something where a lot of YouTubers may or may not need help in. I know a lot of big YouTubers can easily afford to pay groups of artists to make thumbnails for them and draw for them or paint for them for every thumbnail they need. But smaller channels such as mine, and I know, like yours and many other channels out there, I mean, we can't afford to pay some artists $60 a pop for thumbnails when we're making 5 or 6 videos a week or 7 videos a week.
Yeah, and even at that, with 5 or 6 videos, those videos aren't necessarily making that amount of money anyway. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to get into how we utilize AI art and if AI art is going to see big changes in the future. So the way that I use AI art is basically the same as you. I generate different images and use them for thumbnails. Some of those thumbnails you're going to see on the screen right now from both myself and from Firespark, so that you can see some of the things that we've used the AI art platform to create.
I think we should point out mainly, I mean, I'm pretty sure you use only Stable Diffusion. I only have used Stable Diffusion for mine. I know there's 2 other ones out there. There is Midjourney and DALL-E as well, but I run a version of Stable Diffusion locally.
Yeah, that's correct. I use the same Stable Diffusion local, and I have not touched the other platforms that are available.
And I'd also like to point out real quick that I do support artists, and because I do support artists, I have moved to using 2 models that have artists removed or use high quality public domain art. So one of those is the Stable Diffusion 2.0. That one has had a majority of the artists remove, and it made a lot of people in the AI art community a little unhappy that they did that, but I think that was for the best. And just in case anybody out there is concerned that their art may still be in it, or they do not want their art in Stable Diffusion 3, there is a website where you can go and have your art removed from that training data if you wish. And I think Wack will ensure that that link is down below if anybody wants to go there and make sure that they are not in there or their art is not in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be a decision that each artist is going to need to make on their own, whether they want their art to be used in the training of these different AI image generating platforms, or whether they want to steer clear of that. And I don't think there's any real wrong answer here, whether you want your art trained on it or not. I think we're all kind of looking forward to the lawsuits that are currently in progress with the AI art industry as a whole. I know there's a couple of lawsuits going on, both against Stable Diffusion, one from Getty Images and one from a few different artists, that are really going to set some precedent for what we see in the future.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, and I think it's needed because as I stated, that link isn't actually, it's an opt-out thing. So it should be an opt-in situation and not necessarily an opt-out. Like they should just be training on public domain or royalty-free stuff that these other models are using, and then allow artists to opt in instead of making it an opt out process. Because I'm sure there's a lot of artists out there that may not even have any idea that this is a thing or that their art is being used.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think it should be an opt-in instead of an opt-out system, simply because why train on something that you're not sure if you're going to be able to use? And I say we're not sure if you're going to be able to use that now, but there are some serious implications that can come from this lawsuit. And both Firespark and I spoke about this earlier, and neither one of us feel like we have the real insight to go in depth with any of the lawsuit information that's out there right now. But we do have a really good video from Corridor Crew that is linked in the description of this video, and that gives you a perspective from a lawyer on how this case could turn out. So if this is a topic that you're really interested in, I highly recommend getting over and watching that video.
Yeah, I really think it's important for a lot of people to watch that one, and especially if you're artists, because in that video, he mentions something that I never really thought about. One of the interesting things in that video, in kind of scary things, is that the lawyer in that video mentions that there is a possibility that these cases could be won in the favor of the training data being fair use, and that would be in the favor of these companies. And that could be extremely scary for a lot of artists out there, because if it's deemed fair use, from my understanding in that video, there isn't a whole lot that people can really do to stop these large companies from using your art.
Yeah, and that could absolutely be a devastating thing for the art community. And again, these are just our thoughts and opinions on this situation. It doesn't mean that any of this is firm or that this is the direction that it's going, but there are multiple ways that this lawsuit could turn out. It could turn out where it's favorable for everybody. It could turn out where it's favorable for one side versus the other. And we're just going to have to sit here and watch that all unfold. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who actually is a graphic designer or graphic artist, and he didn't know a whole lot about the AI art thing. He heard about it and knew a little bit, but I had him watch me do some AI art stuff, and he kind of directed what I should be doing. And he was absolutely blown away by what it was able to produce. And he was like, this is a great tool because I could go in here and say, hey, I want you to generate this. And that's going to give me ideas for my own art. And I could use some of those resources or pull from some of those resources to create my own art with the AI art that it generates.
I think that that's something to point out too, is it's going to get relatively messy because the tech out there to train the AI is out there thanks to Stable Diffusion, Stability AI. They put it out there for everybody. So the tech is out there because it's open source. So there are a lot of people out there who understand how it works and are doing whatever they want to do with it. There's already companies that have picked it up and are, hiring coders to improve it and do all this other stuff. But something that someone did right from the get-go was created the ability to create embeds, which allows you to train the model or a part of the model on something specific, such as your face, and then you can use that in with whatever other model you want to use to put your face in whatever situation you want to put it in. And a good example of this is the Lensa app. That's essentially what the Lensa app is doing. It's using the program called Dream Booth to train your face, and then generates a bunch of images for you, and your face is on some fairy tale character or what have you. So that technology is not going away, and once it's on the internet, we all know it's there to stay. So I think it's going to get a little messy especially once laws get put into place, because the early models of Stable Diffusion did not have any type of watermark in them. And even though that the newest model does have a watermark in it so that you can tell that this was created with AI or an image was created with AI, who's to say that that just won't get removed and people are going to say, oh no, I painted that myself or what have you.
So you mentioned embeds, and I think that's some place that I really want to drill down to, because one of the things that I want to cover with this video is why would an artist actually want their work covered by an AI? If I was an artist, why would I look at an AI program and say, I really want my art to be in there? And really, for me, thinking about it, it would come down to those different embeds. I know from being on YouTube how hard it is to be discovered, and that's a platform where people discover people all the time. Whereas I feel like there aren't really strong platforms, maybe other than DeviantArt, where artists can be discovered like that. And I almost think that if you were smart at this point in time, if you were a really savvy artist and had a really good idea of how the system works, you could go in, make an embed of your own art, and technically either use it as a platform to become discovered, or you could use it as a platform to possibly even sell your embed. Hey, if you really like my art, you can buy my embed for X amount of money.
Right. And then that gives whoever purchased that embed the right to create art similar to that person, because there's not really any copyright or any way to copyright a style. The copyright claims that come down to this is using that person's art to train something without their okay on the thing. So if you give the okay and you have that embed and you sell that embed, well, then, then whoever generates with the embed that they purchased would have the right to do it, because you basically just gave them permission to, because they paid for it. And not only that, like, think about it this way, and I mentioned it earlier, it can supercharge an artist's work. So if they already have a library of work that is in their style, they can train that embed and it will do a really, really good job at replicating their style. Now, let's say an artist, their average turnaround time actually, let me ask you, because you've purchased some art for your character, how long did it take you to get that art? What was the turnaround time on that art for your Conan character?
Yeah, so each time I've purchased a Conan character piece of art, it takes anywhere from about a month to maybe a month and a half to get it fully from line art to fully done. It's about a month to a month and a
Think about this, that artist that you paid for that art could train an embed on that art and tell it wants a character, describe your character to Stable Diffusion, get something that's pretty dang close, and then they really only have to go back in and make a few corrections, probably redraw the hands, redraw the face a little bit, maybe here and there, depending on how close it is to the face, because Stable Diffusion does a much better job at close-up faces than it does faces at a distance, and make little tweaks here and there. So the bulk of the art is already done for them, and it takes them maybe 2-3 days to fix the hands, correct the face, and bam, there you go. They just drastically reduce their turnaround time, which means they can move on to the next client and make more money. Because I know a lot of people out there are really worried about AI art taking over, but there is always going to be a need for artists, even once the AI is perfect and can do hands and faces flawlessly every time. And I think a lot of people forget that because these people know how to paint digitally, that translates to using a brush and painting on canvas relatively easy.
Well, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here just a little bit, because I have a feeling that some of our folks watching are probably thinking, well, this is the death of art as we know. And it may very well be the death of art as we know it, because so much can be generated. But I think if I'm following what you're saying, is that it's a tool for the start point of the art. And then the additions are what make it more unique and more art related for that artist. Does that sound about right? What would you say to people that just feel like this is the end?
I mean, it's not. So as I stated, if you can draw digitally and you can use Photoshop to draw images and you can use it to paint images, there's a pretty good chance that you can do that on paper. You can draw, a character on paper as well as on Photoshop or whatever Krita, whatever program you use to do your digital art. And there's always going to be a need and a want for real art. It may put a hurting on people who do work digitally, but there's always going to be a want for actual art that is where I can see the paint texture. I can see the texture in the whatever medium they decide to use, whether I want to say chalk, but I'm thinking
brush strokes on an oil painting, or
well the brush strokes on or charcoal, that's the word I'm looking for. The charcoal, it has that texture. I want that hanging in my house. I don't want a digital print hanging in my house. And I know there are people out there who don't care, but there are a lot of people out there like me who do. If I'm hanging something in my house, I want it to be something that an artist actually painted. I want to see that texture. That's part of the art to me. So it may hurt digital artists a little bit, but I also think that there is going to be a situation where laws get passed where companies do actually have to pay artists to use their work to train models. So they will need artists, and there will be style changes that companies will want to do to their art, and they'll have to pay artists a pretty hefty sum because they need a good chunk of images to train models on. So they're going to have to pay these artists for a lot of images so that they can train their models. And I think it'll just move to a situation, or to that style situation. You know what I mean?
Sure. And you've brought this up in the video already talking about music. But if we look at programs like Napster and Spotify and how those things really evolved the music industry, or the user side of the music industry, we went through basically the same thing with those programs that we're looking at going through now with AI art. And this first lawsuit is going to make a big difference on how that progresses forward. I fully expect that at some point there's only going to be a paid for service, and out of that paid for service for AI art, you're going to end up paying royalties to a lot of those artists that have had their art trained in that system.
That could be too. Yeah, that very well could be. I mean, who knows? We won't really know until the people who make the laws start to get their hands into things. Because I remember when everybody, I'm sure many of you out there remember back in the day when everybody was torrenting music, and
Exactly.
artists were like, oh my God, it's the end of music as we know it. And now they're all on Spotify making decent money, and people are going to their live shows, and even more so than they probably used to. They're going to their live shows because it's easier to buy tickets, and payment plans and all this other stuff for buying tickets. So yeah, I mean, music never went anywhere. There's still plenty of people out there who are making a killing on music, even like posting their music to YouTube and getting the ad revenue from that. I mean, it was not the death of music, it was the evolution of how we consume music. And I think it's going to be a similar thing with art.
Yeah, it absolutely can be. And I would say I would try to embolden any artists that are actually watching this video to go out and see how you can really capitalize on what's happening right now. And I don't mean go out and jump on a lawsuit or anything like that. I mean, that's your prerogative if that's what you want to do. But think about ways that you can use the system, the AI system, the changes that are coming to your advantage, and be ready to jump on that train when it comes by. Because I think there's a big opportunity for people to make a lot of money, to gain a lot of attention for themselves, and to set themselves up for a better future down the road.
I want to point out that this is the absolute perfect time, if you are an artist, for you to jump on the AI train and not the hate train. I feel really bad for a lot of these artists who are just immediately turning their nose up at AI art because they can use it to their advantage to supercharge their workflow and absolutely crush their turnaround time. I want any of you out there who are artists to learn about Stable Diffusion, learn about Automatic 1111, or any of the other web interfaces out there that you can use to use Stable Diffusion locally, and understand how to use Dream Booth, understand how to use this on maybe a hosted site so that you're not using your own graphics card if you don't have an insanely good graphics card. There are a ton of sites out there that can host all of this for you and allow you to train models and all that. There's a lot of information already out there on YouTube. Learn about it and learn how to use it to your advantage. If you have a decent library of work, you can use Dream Booth to train a style. So you can train the AI on your art style, and then you can go back in and make corrections for whatever you want, or just use it to show your client ideas, because you can rapidly generate tons of rough ideas to show a client. That way you get an idea of what they're looking for, and you don't have to sketch it. The AI art does the work for you. There's so much out there for you to do, and now's the time to capitalize on it and make the money.
Yeah, and I think it's important that I take this moment, since this is Wax Brutal Truth. The brutal, hardcore truth is that AI art isn't going anywhere.
No, it's here.
We're talking about a couple of programs and services that are very new, but actually AI art has been here for quite some time. If you've been using Photoshop, you know that there's a content aware fill. There's neural filters. There's all these tools built inside of that program that are actually AI art. What we're talking about is a step further than those programs, but no matter what, AI art in some form or fashion is here to stay.
AI in general is here to stay. I mean,
Yeah.
all of these companies are working their way towards one thing, and that is artificial general intelligence. And all of these different AI programs that you're seeing and little neural networks here and there, it's all parts of a greater whole that big tech companies are working their way towards. And we'll get it at some point. It's not going anywhere. We've been advancing it for years and years. It's been around for years now, and it's just going to keep advancing. And the thing is like, the smarter it gets, the quicker it all advances. I saw a thing, not to completely jump the train of thought here, but I saw a thing the other day where it was a video where they used ChatGPT, which is an AI text program, to basically help them code a visual AI that could tell the difference between a cat and a dog. So they used an AI to create an AI, and it was very basic, but I mean, everything has a basic starting point. You know what I mean?
And you're right, because AI is everywhere now. We're talking about visual art AI, but there's AI that will give you a voice. There's AI that will write stories for you. There's AI that will make music for you. There are all these different AI programs out there. We're just talking about this one because it happens to be one that we both use, and we feel like this is a good opportunity and a good time for artists to jump on board and find their spot, as well as just kind of generally covering it in a way that people can understand what's actually going on and what pitfalls or what things we may see happen in the future.
Let me ask you a question, Whack. As someone who has bought art from someone, because I know this is something that a lot of people are scared of, is like nobody's going to buy art from anybody anymore, and someone who actually uses AI for thumbnails and stuff. Will you continue to use your artist that makes your stuff for you, for your character that is on a lot of your merchandise?
Yeah, I absolutely will. As long as he's doing art, I will continue to commission him for art. And the reason why isn't because I've got a relationship with him, it isn't because the AI art isn't good, but I love his style. I love working with him. And he's able to point out things in the art that I don't see until he points them out. So he's a great resource for making sure that the art is top notch. Where if I was just to generate that art myself or have someone else generate it, I feel like it wouldn't be as quality as the product that I get from him. So I'll absolutely buy from him.
And I think there's a lot of people that are going to be like that. Obviously these companies that want this, they want it so that they can cut costs, right? Like there's a lot of big, Microsoft has a stake in Dolly and OpenAI. I think they own a pretty good chunk of that company, if not all of it. I'll have to double check that, but I know they do have a stake in it, and they funded it a little. And you know why? Like, they want it so they can use it for advertising or whatever else they want, because they can lay off a ton of their graphic design and people and their artist people. So obviously big companies want it, and it's going to hurt people who work for big companies. But the people out there who commission art from artists, they want the artist's work. They want the artist's touch that the AI is never going to be able to do, right? Because the AI just does what it's trained on and tries to recreate images based on what it's trained on. So it knows how to make a human face if you ask for a human face. But is it going to have the proper expression? It doesn't even understand the proper expression. How long is it going to be until it does? I mean, I tried to get a scared look on a character, and it just didn't know. It didn't understand what a scared expression looks like. Not in the way that an artist can understand and put that feeling into the face. The AI just doesn't understand that, and it's going to be a very long time before it does.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I really do believe that the lawsuit is a really good thing. And I don't think even people on the side that are receiving the lawsuit feel like it's a bad thing. We need to have some direction and some laws in place that protect the artist and protect the AI going forward. And that's what this is all about. And I hope to see some common ground found in the future.
Before we wrap up, I just would like to point out that I do support artists, and I do 100% think that AI, it should be opt-in for artists. It's really unfair to artists, visual artists, that they don't already have major representation out there. I mean, they are a little bit in the way of Getty Images taking this lawsuit or making this lawsuit happen, but there wasn't until there was a lot of pressure from artists grouping together to put pressure on these companies and stuff like that. And it's really unfair that their work got used for this model and that companies are out there just making a killing off of it.
I think that all makes a lot of sense, and I know we've covered just an absolute ton of stuff in this video, so I do want to wrap it up here. In the comments section below, I want to know your thoughts. What do you think of the AI? Are you on board with it? Are you against it? And do you want to see more content revolving around AI art in the future?